what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my patch 9.2 PTR Warlock Tier set / current state of the class feedback video. Now, I made a video semi-similar to this probably about a month ago, give or take, when tier sets first came out. However, a lot of things have changed over the course of Sepulchre testing, PTR. We don't have double legendaries yet, but still, I think I've gotten a much better feel for the class, the specs, how they perform, or how they aren't performing, I guess I should say, and things like that. There's also been a lot of discussion on the forums, in the Warlock feedback section, in my Discord, in the Lock Discord, in DMs, about tier sets and how they should and hopefully will change, because Warlock is the final class that has received zero feedback on any of their tier sets whatsoever. So I wanted to get this video out and discuss things, and hopefully we'll see some changes, I guess in the new year at this point, because there's no more PTR builds until then. But either way, it's important because this is the final tier of the expansion, and while locks might look good in raid testing, I think that's skewed, and I actually don't think we're as good as people think we are. So yeah, with that being said, if you guys want to discuss it anytime, there's a link to my stream down below if you want to come by and hang out, ask any questions, my week war or something there as well if you guys want to snag them. Also want to give one big shout out to my patrons before we get into the video. Thank you all a million times for all support, guys. Heads up, with heroic testing concluded and the holidays being here, the 9.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet should indeed be going up, I would say within the next week or so, the next few days. The tier 3 Felguard rank my Patreon or higher does indeed get early access to that. So with all that being said, if you want to look at the document, I'll have a link to it down below. We're going to start off just going spec by spec, and at the very end I have a general Warlock feedback section. It's about 5 pages. I'm going to do as best as I can to make this video as short as possible, but there's a lot to cover, and yeah. So, and by the way, these thoughts aren't all just mine. THD, Cheese, Father Daughter, Niu, Motoko, Malakath, Solzy, and plenty of other Warlocks I've spoken to as well. Also echo similar viewpoints and things. Thank you again for all the help, guys, by the way. With that being said, let's get into it. All right. Like I mentioned, starting things off, we're going to go Affliction, Demonology, and then Destruction for tier bonuses. Saving the best for last. Okay, I don't want to meme too early in the video here. And then going through general class feedback. Now, I'm going to sort of like summarize a few points here, give or take, also showing some examples like we did in the actual document itself. Basically, TLDR, I think the 2-piece and 4-piece for Affliction are solid. The 15% Rapture buff does not bring us, back to equilibrium where we were in 9.0 with the Malignancy nerf, the Rapture nerf, the Shadows Embrace nerf, but it's sort of a step in the right direction. I do think Rapture needs a bit of a buff. I'm not a huge fan of a tier set being the thing that fixes it, but in the end, I'll take it. It's better than nothing, right? There has been some mention of adding Siphon Life to the dots that are extended by the 2-piece, which is currently Agony, Corruption, and Unstable Affliction. And while I do think that would be pretty cool, and it'd be pretty awesome overall and fun to play with, I do think that would add too much power to Siphon Life, because in single target, we take Siphon Life. Best single target ability, more Rapture damage, more Withering Bolt damage, more Malefic Wrath damage, stacking all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to council-based fights, we typically take Wrath and Agony or Absolute Corruption. But if this dot, Siphon Life, was extended by the bonus, it'd be Siphon Life everywhere. A good example is Pantheon, right? In Sepulchre testing, we played Wrath and Agony because the bonus is bugged currently, but we either play Wrath or AC. But if you take Siphon there, you just dot the first 2 bosses up and it never falls, really, because you're rapturing so often with the shard you have, it's just excessive. So I do think it'd be cool to have around, but I don't think it's very realistic or likely that it actually happens. I feel the main issue with the tier bonus revolves around the 4-piece, though, which is, I think, the general consensus of most of the community, right? Which gives Drain Soul a 4% chance and Shadow Bolt a 20% chance to make your next Malefic Rapture free and cost no soul shards. Now, Drain Soul is a channeled ability, partial ticks, all that kind of stuff. No real travel time, but either way, you would sort of assume that with those 2 numerical values being set where they are by Blizzard, that they'd have the same proc rate, but they do not. Playing Nightfall, meaning you have Shadow Bolt as your filler, gives you a higher proc chance for the 4-piece, which is a free Malefic Rapture cast, than casting Drain Soul. Now, I feel the change should be to obviously just buff Drain Soul's proc rate to bring them in line with each other. The actual math is out there on the forums and the Lock Discord. I didn't want to put it in here because it's sort of like, excessive and boring, but I believe I've seen somewhere around 9% for Drain Soul roughly would bring it in line with Shadow Bolt's proc rate. And I think it's where it should be. Or Nightfall's proc rate, I'm sorry. I'm not really sure if this is Blizzard's attempt to maybe make Nightfall like a better option in the first row here and sort of like move us away from the Drain Soul playstyle we had for a long time. But I don't really think, if that is the case, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't want to be sort of pigeonholed into playing one talent, even though you sort of are most of the time anyways, just because my tier set works in an awkward way with my actual talents. Now, I do have two sims here that show the disparity between Drain Soul and Nightfall sims, so essentially Drain Soul and Shadowbolt. Flashbang warning, right? We're actually good. Okay, sure. So here is the 4-piece tier set with Drain Soul, DS being Drain Soul, right? So baseline DS, Drain Soul with no 2-piece at all, 9,065 DPS. Here is baseline sim with Nightfall. It's behind by, we can say, roughly 200 DPS, right? Here's 2-piece with Nightfall. So a pretty similar gain, 5.6 to 5.1, because there's no real difference there, right? It's just dot extensions and, you know, rapture damage increase, right? But the 4-piece here for Nightfall, being Shadowbolt, is a 10.5 DPS increase comparatively to Drain Soul being 7.4, because Drain Soul procs the 4-piece a good bit less. Now, like I said, I've heard it. Oh, sorry. I believe about 10%, 9 to 10% is where Drain Soul needs to be to have them sort of at equilibrium, where they can both be a pretty similar proc rate. And I would like to see that. This is not me fanboying over Drain Soul. I think it should be baseline. But regardless, I don't like having my 4-piece sort of pigeonhole me into playing one ability, which, let's be honest, Nightfall in most raid settings, I feel personally is playable. It's okay, but it's not optimal when it comes to actual, like, the toolkit that Affliction has, right? Now, putting the Drain Soul Shadowbolt playstyle aside, the filler playstyle aside, another route that the 4-piece could go, and this is sort of tied into PvP as well, right? Could be to shift the free Malefic Rapture proc to being based off unstable Affliction ticks and not Shadowbolt or Drain Soul cast. It interacts with the 2-piece well, because it's permanent Affliction extension, right? Well, sort of permanent, right? It also fits the one unstable Affliction matters kind of thing that was put in Shadowlands, right? This also is a pretty good step in the right direction, I believe, for PvP, because one of the complaints about the 4-piece, I think mostly just the 4-piece for AF, is that in PvP, there's not really much to do. Like, it doesn't really do anything, because you're not casting your filler very often. You're refreshing dots, and people are running away from you, so you can't really cast Drain Soul a crazy amount. You're not casting Shadowbolt a crazy amount. But if it was Unstable Affliction that could grant you the actual Rapture proc, okay, if they're LOS, they're still LOS, right? But you'll have that Rapture proc banked for when they're not, you know? I would assume this is a step in the right direction for PvP. I don't do it a whole lot. But regardless, the other thing is that this could help AF in council-based fights. Because I can tell you, on Pantheon testing a few days ago when I played AF, I wasn't actually casting Shadowbolt or Drain Soul anywhere near as much as I am in patchwork fights, you know? So the 4-piece is devalued in council fights too, which is more where AF strength should lie, in council-based dot settings. But if it's Unstable Affliction, it has essentially the same proc chance in single target, in 2 target, in 8,000 target, because it's 1 dot of Unstable Affliction. So there are positives and negatives to this too, right? It might make the playstyle a bit less engaging, because you're not like dealing with your, you know, Shadowbolts or Drain Souls and getting procs. I don't know. I'm sort of split on it, but personally, I think this is a better alternative to what the Drain Soul Nightfall playstyle goes. You're not pigeonholed into playing one subpar talent, because this is better here and this is better there. It fits the UA profile of the spec relatively well. And for the most part, you maintain your UAs basically in every setting, right? And the final point on the 4-piece here is that there's also the overall applicability of Rapture in AoE and Mythic Plus. While it is certainly something that you can cast in single target, which, you know, we do, obviously it's our filler. Seed of Corruption is our main charge bender in 3+ target settings with Decaying Soul Satchel. And it's not even close. F has a very, very strong AoE burst profile. The 4-piece only giving you a Rapture proc is a bit disappointing, because if you're playing Sow the Seeds, you're not playing Phantom Singularity. And you're probably not playing Siphon Life either. So it's already devalued Phantom Singularity by 2, because no PS, no Siphon Life. So that Rapture proc, while it is free in Mythic Plus, let's say for example on a trash pack, it's not going to do an incredible amount of damage, right? I would love to, and I don't think, okay, I would love to see the actual proc change to either Rapture or Seed of Corruption, right? There's no real degeneracy here. Getting extra seed cast in AoE wouldn't make or break AF, make it be incredibly better or worse than it already is, but it would give you that universal reach and applicability in Mythic Plus with the 4-piece, as well as, you know, rating in single target fights with the 4-piece too. So overall, like, I'm happy with the 4-piece generally, with its baseline. Hey, when this procs, it procs a free Rapture, right? But I think they could build upon it a bit and make it a bit better. But I like the synergy between the 4-piece of AF and the 2-piece of AF. It feels good, you know. I think with some tweaking and tuning, it could be in a better spot. My concern lies in PvP, in council-based fights, and, you know, I guess sort of in Mythic Plus. So, moving on. Demonology. Okay. So, okay. The Demonology 2-piece, which grants you a third Dreadstalker, is incredible and very synergistic with Demonology. It is. The third dog, the 2-piece for Demonology is stronger and better than the 4-piece, even right now, with it being buggy on PTR. So many interactions. FTS, Dreadlash, Carnivorous Stalkers, a very well-rounded tier bonus, right? There have been some concerns lately about the possibility of this being proc-based, or going to being proc-based, or having a 50% chance whenever you cast Dreadstalkers to summon a third one, because of how strong it is. And I really, really, really urge Blizzard to not do that. Number one, Demonology already has a bit of RNG in it with with the 4-piece, with Tyrants critting, Tyrant setup, things like that. It's already sort of a frustrating spec at times to play. But putting all that aside, I just, it's a really strong bonus. And I think if Blizzard is considering making this a 70% chance, a 50, a whatever, or every other dogs that you cast, you know, has a third dog in it, I would strongly urge them to consider swapping the 4-piece with the 2-piece. Whatever you have to do, just, I would not change the third dog to a chance to proc. It would really take away most of the fun and excitement of this actual piece. The dogs build, FTS, Dreadlash, is a really exciting build. People love playing it with Grim Inquisitors, and it's fun too. I enjoy it, but making it go RNG or a chance to proc that third dog would hurt the build a lot, number one, and number two, would remove most of the fun that it actually has. So the Demonology 4-piece, this is where I don't want to say my issues lie, but where it needs to be addressed. So the 4-piece, for those who don't know, has been bugged since the first build on PTR. It is still bugged right now. It gives you currently a 50% chance. I can pull it up here. It gives you a 50% chance per shard spent in Hand of Gul'dan to summon a Malicious Imp. Now, the tooltip says 5%, so I am assuming that it is, you know, supposed to be 5% and not 50. If it is intended to be 50 and they haven't, you know, updated the tooltip, that's something in itself that could honestly be pretty cool and lead to some different playstyles. We'll get to that in a little while. So the big thing here is that we're going off of being 5%. Currently it's bugged, you know, so if you cast a 2-shard hand or more, it gives you a guaranteed Malicious Imp. This has led to an excessive amount of soul shard generation as well, as imps, this is Malicious Imps, damage for the first stages of raid testing. Basically, with that third Dreadstalker being a thing on the 2-piece, you already have Born of Blood. You already have random demonic core procs and pets expiring, right? You already have your 2 Dreadstalkers expire, you know, and give you 2 core procs. With that third one, now you get 3 core procs. And having Malicious Imps, whenever they despawn, they also give you a shard, which means that you have those shards to manage on top of the third core proc, on top of Born of Blood getting another eye level or 2 this patch coming around, more haste being out there, more haste, more dog chomps. It's just a really, you have so many shards currently on PTR, but even in the fixed sims for Demonology, the shard generation that Demonology has to sort of deal with is excessive. You can see in the sims, Demonology is close to capping at times, even with the sims functioning properly with the 4-piece. So my hope, I do like the shard generation on the actual imp, but I just don't know with that third dog if it's something that should stay. Personally, I feel like it probably shouldn't. It's just too much to manage, you know. And like, I know Demonology does have the playstyle of sort of having to micromanage shard generation and sometimes overcapping due to RNG and things, but I feel like I'm often sitting at 3 stacks of demonic core trying to dump shards as much as possible, even dumping a bolt for 1 shard, because I have 4 more procs coming in 2 seconds. Tyrant Soul being another thing that gives them, you know, more shard gen. It's excessive to the point where you're not getting the full value out of the 4-piece. That's a good way to put it, right? So realistically, I think there are a couple things they should do to the 4-piece, right? If it's actually a 5% spawn chance, right? And not 50. The imps also currently don't count towards decon, which is, you know, a bit of maybe an oversight. I'm not really sure, but either way, there are a handful of ways to address the 4-piece. Now, number one, I think you can keep the proc rate the same potentially. However, increase the raw damage done by malicious imps while potentially removing the shard generation portion. You probably should remove the shard generation portion at this point and give us more raw power behind the imps or something else, because the shard gen is just not, it's not something you can realistically maintain a whole lot. And there might be a bit of tweaking you have to do with the actual proc rate, or I guess, you know, percent rate whenever you cast Hand of Gul'dan. it sort of depends on tuning, right? Number 2 is based off the raw value the 4-piece grants in proper sims, which, you know, you can see here at this link as well. Increase the % chance per shard that Hand of Ghoul has to summon a malicious imp. Now, this is, if we pull up the actual sims here and look into how much damage actual malicious imps are doing, once again, in game, they're about, I think, 5 to 6%. But if you go to the actual fixed version of this, when they have a 5% chance to spawn and not 50, their damage is pretty mediocre. They're sitting right here at 0.9%. And that's your 4-piece, right? Now, when they expire, they do damage as well. But their expiration damage is right here. It's pretty bad. Your 4-piece gives you 0.4, I guess a 1.3% damage increase, not including the actual shard generation. But it's still to the point where I think the shard gen could go, and you would be fine regardless. So this is technically an option, but I do feel realistically the better way to do it is just to either increase the proc rate or maybe, you know, keep it the same however sims go, and look at the actual raw malicious imp damage and increase that from there. And if need be, you could swap the 2-piece and the 4-piece to keep your dogs as, you know, a guaranteed chance. While I would still personally like to see the 2-piece remain where it is, I would much rather maintain the 100% chance for Dreadstalkers. Yep. So with the 2-piece already granting a 3rd demonic core proc per Dreadstalker set, Born in Blood procs, and general demonic core RNG, the 4-piece shard generation almost feels unwanted, or I guess, you know, excessive is a better way to put it, even with it functioning in a bug state on PTR. I feel as if I have way too many shards and simply not enough time to use them all before more come in via demonic core. So I actually like the 4-piece. I think it's cool, but the shard generation just needs to be changed, most likely. You can't really leverage the extra shards with that 3rd dog with higher born up blood levels, Tyrant Soul, whatever, what have you. But an actual increase to the malicious imp damage, maybe making it count towards decon, depending what you want to do. There is some RNG in there, so I'm actually sort of okay with it not being there. Just it's sort of a weird thing when they're not counting towards it right now. It is most likely the best way to go. Increase raw malicious imp damage and, you know, go from there. Now, if you wanted to keep it at a 50% spawn rate like it is now, that opens up a lot of doors because, okay, do you cast 1 shard Hand of Gul'dans for a 1 in 2 chance to spawn an imp, or 2 shard Hand of Gul'dans outside of Tyrants for a guaranteed malicious imp spawn, but not 3, like, you know, actual imps? Because the actual damage the malicious imps deal is it's like 5 to 6% on PTR. It's a relatively substantial amount, but I don't think it's excessive. And I don't think Demonology is too strong at this point in single target, or it actually needs a nerf. But either way, regardless of whatever they do, the shard generation probably is excessive and needs to probably just go and be and buff other aspects of the actual 4-piece. So not disappointed with it at all, but just a bit of tweaking and tuning probably needed there. Okay, so destruction. Now this is where things get a little intense. I'm just gonna read it word for word. So I will say that while I will offer feedback below, the best thing for the Destro 2 4-piece is a complete overhaul unless drastic changes are made, which I mentioned below. RNG is not fun, and it is especially not fun when your 4-piece bonus depends solely upon the 2-piece procking with no bad luck protection at all. I have had polls during raid testing, Pantheon, where I received 3 to 4 procs in my opener, and others where I received 0 to 3 or 0 for 3+ minutes. Pantheon, you can watch the VOD. This kind of RNG severely hinders destruction, which is already drastically undertuned in every PvE setting and makes it a subpar choice for a progression rating. I'll say at the bat, progression rating, you want a similar, consistent damage profile from pole to pole. Now, this version of Destro, I will say, even on Pantheon, when I had the good procs in my opener, I wasn't like ahead of everybody by a crazy amount, which is scary in the first place because of what Pantheon is and what Destro's toolkit is and what the 2-piece and 4-piece do when they proc a lot. But you want a consistent or semi-consistent damage profile, right? If you're depending on this group of 5 people, for example, on Anduin, to go downstairs and kill the ads just in time and come back up to min-max damage, and the Destro lock can't do anything because it didn't get good RNG, that just has no place in rating. Blizzard has this weird like fixation upon Destro being chaotic with RNG and chaotic energies, but it's just not fun to have 0 procs on your 2-piece or 4-piece, and it's just not fun to do no damage. It's simple. It's that, and this 4-piece just builds upon the current frustrations of Destro. So, but overall, I want to see an overhaul. But if they don't want to do it, the changes below could most likely save these actual bonuses. So, moving on. Destro 2P states that casting Rain of Fire or Chaos Bolt has a 20% chance to make the next cast of the other free. So if you cast a Rain of Fire, for example, and you get a proc, the next Chaos Bolt will be free. There's no free Rain of Fire in there, and vice versa. While casting free Rain of Fires or Chaos Bolts might sound like an exciting bonus, I can assure you that it's been everything but that in actual play. Now, okay, launching a free bolt in a massive AoE setting feels good, or it feels fine, but you're more excited about proccing the Infernal from the bolt, because spoilers, the 4-piece, when you get a proc, you cast it, it procs an Infernal. The Immolation Aura value from the Infernal in AoE is infinitely more relevant than it is in single target, right? The Shard Gen is too, because more Rain of Fire cast, more Chaos Bolt cast, more Infernals. It compounds upon itself. But in single target, casting a Rain of Fire feels pretty bad, even though it's free. It's not very exciting, not very fun at all. And the Infernal in single target, the Immolation Aura value is nowhere near as relevant. The Shard Gen's, I guess, similar, but it's just, it's not really there, you know. There are a few issues with this bonus, looking at the 2-piece here, that I feel need to be corrected to save it from an actual overhaul. And this is referring to the 1 in 5 chance to proc a Rain of Fire or Bolt, right? Number 1, the proc needs to occur either after every X Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire cast. So like, after 5 Chaos Bolt cast or Rain of Fire cast, it guarantees you a free proc, 100%. So you know, okay, it's coming now. Launch the bolt, cast the rain, here's my Infernal, right? Or it could also be after X shards have been spent. So after, I don't know, what is it now? Like on average, probably like what? 12 shards. After 10 shards have been spent, you're guaranteed an Infernal on your next shard consuming spell. Both of those would work because there's consistency there, right? And honestly, I don't even want bad luck protection built into this, because I've seen the bad luck protection that's built into Rain of Chaos, and it's still horrendous. I still at times get a Rain of Chaos proc in my first spell, and at times I proc an Infernal at the end of the window, and it feels terrible. I don't want bad luck protection. I'm tired of Destro RNG. It needs to be consistent. One of these two has to happen. Number one of these two has to happen, or the set as a whole needs to be scrapped 100%. The RNG of Destro just feels terrible right now. It's not fun. Gameplay, it's not exciting. It needs to be scrapped or change this 100%. Get rid of the RNG. Get rid of the bad luck protection. It doesn't do anything. Give us consistency. Consistency is key in raiding, and even PvP. It's what makes the game. No one wants RNG. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not exciting, right? Number 2, the proc should be changed to casting Rain of Fire or Chaos Bolt has a 20% chance or X% chance, however you want to word it, whether you factor these two in or not. Casting a Rain can give you either a free Rain cast or a free Bolt cast, or vice versa. Casting a Bolt can give you a free Rain or a free Bolt. It shouldn't be, all right, I'm in mass AoE, I'm casting Rain of Fire, oh, I get to cast a Bolt now. Or I'm going crazy in single target, oh, here's my free Rain of Fire cast. Rain in single target feels terrible. It's not good, and it sort of feels awkward in AoE too, right? At this current point in time, you cannot get a proc from a proc either. You can't like cast the Bolt, get a free Rain proc, cast a free Rain, get a free Bolt proc. You can't do that. So there's no real concern there of like, oh, some degenerate RNG happening. No, it doesn't work that way. So both of these I feel need to happen for this bonus to have any chance. Because at this current point in time, it sort of feels like somebody was just like, I don't know what to do. These spells are cool. Moving on. So yeah, if these changes were to be implemented, I think it would be a great step in the right direction for Destro. Sure. Okay, 4-piece. The Destro 4-piece is also sadly in a pretty poor spot. Having the 4-piece bonus tied to the 2-piece proccing leads to bland, frustrating gameplay at times, without the changes above being implemented. Yeah, I will admit that having an instant cast bolt maybe which drops an Infernal feels good. Sure, we'll talk about this. I don't like having my 4-piece coupled to my 2-piece. Now, if they change the 2-piece to what we talked about above, it can work. But in general, I don't like having my 4-piece, my big bonus, tied to my 2-piece having to happen, you know? Especially in the state that's in right now with RNG. It feels terrible. Like on that Pantheon poll, I had no 2-piece and no 4-piece. Imagine walking into a mythic progression setting, Race the World first, whatever you're looking at. Your whole raid's decked out in 4 pieces. You come in with your clown suit on with no tier. That's how it feels. It feels terrible. It feels so bad. So yeah. And then at times, you know, you come in your clown suit and you proc 5 Infernals in your opener and destroy everybody. Well, okay, you don't destroy everybody. you actually barely keep up, but you know what I'm saying. The RNG is just not needed. I hate like I'm a broken record, but I am. The RNG is just not needed. It's not wanted. It's not exciting. It shouldn't be there. So if they change the 2-piece to be where it is here, like what he's mentioned, the 4-piece is probably fine, because that Infernal and single target, you know, it'll be a little more relevant. That Infernal AoE, you know, because that Infernal and single target could mean more shards for a bolt procking a bolt, or a rain procking a rain in AoE, right? And the final thing here that is I wanted to mention, number one, if you proc a free bolt or a free cast bolt or a free rain, I didn't put it here, you don't get the CDR from Wilfred's, which I'm not sure if it's a bug or intended. It's probably intended. Probably should be changed though. You probably should get the actual CDR. But the big thing here is also an issue with the 4-piece not interacting with Revamp Chaos, our you know, essentially our flashiest talent as Destra, right? It's on the same row as Roaring Blaze. A throwback to BFA, Vision of Perfection Major and Grimoire of Supremacy were very, very similar. VOP Major Infernal procs would proc Supremacy, and that was really degenerate because you could chain Supremacy forever. There were some pulls with Destra locks, just chaining it for the whole fight. This 4-piece with Random Chaos is nowhere near that degenerate, but there's still no interaction between the two. So I would strongly, I hope that Blizz looks at that and makes some changes to it, because there's no synergy with this 4-piece, this spec at all. There's very little synergy with the 2-piece to feel like this spec at all. But there's potential if these changes are made. If they don't want to, or they're afraid of Random Chaos, you know, 4-piece aren't, or 4-piece procs, whatever, and just overhaul it. I think the best option is to overhaul it, unless basically all the changes are made. If they want to, you know, half-ass it and go, oh well, we'll give you, you know, a 30% chance, or, you know, we won't change to either Chaos Bolt and or Random Fire. Just overhaul it. Just overhaul it, man. Because I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with it. You know. So that's that. It can't. The actual bonus looks really fun on paper, but in actual gameplay, it's incredibly frustrating. It feels worse than scuffing a Tyrant setup as Demonology, because everyone's going crazy on pull, less than popping CDs, and you're sitting there, you know, playing. They're playing 3D chess, and you're playing checkers. All right, sounds fun. So that covers Destra, Demo, and AF, 2-piece, 4-pieces. For the most part, AF, pretty happy with. Once again, 4-piece can change a little bit here and there, present tweaks. Similar with Demonology, Destra needs help, but we covered that, right? So the final thing here is the actual current state of Warlock on, I guess, in 9.2 PTR. Yeah, briefly, I want to touch on each spec. It's not too long, but I think it's important to touch on and cover on here, because this is the final patch. There's no 9.3, right? And I don't want a repeat of 9.1. So, yeah. Both the Affliction 2-piece and Demonology 4-piece have been bugged since the first build of PTR, which is true, which has made testing with them hard to do. Demonology still feels like how it does in SOD, which it brings a strong single target and stacked AoE profile, but it doesn't have anything like besides that, right? You can't hit 2 spread targets. You can't do a council fight with Demonology. It's good at one thing, essentially. It's pretty good at it. Demo, stamina scaling, PI, all that. You can do a lot of single target damage. Okay, you have AF and Destra to cover both those other, you know, spread council-based settings, but AF and Destra aren't good. They're just subpar. They just are. AF still is not recovered from the decimating blow it received in 9.1 outside of its strong burst AoE profile, which is held together by decaying Soul Satchel. And think about it. It hasn't, right? AF is flashy and good and exciting on Soul Render, on Fate Scribe, where else? On heavy ad burst fights, where you can play DSS on Kel'Thuzad and spam Seed. But look at the patchwork fights. Look at the council-based fights. Where's AF? Mod check. It's not here, dude. It's not here, right? You have some people playing, you know, Malefic Wrath, like I've been for a while on single target, but like, let's be honest here. Demo, power infusion, stamina scaling, it's better. It just is by a long shot. You can play it, but that version of AF is also like infinitely more complicated with Malefic Wrath stacks and windows, and like it hasn't recovered from the 9.0 nerfs. And in the state that it's in now, when I played it on Pantheon testing last week, I was struggling to keep up with like warriors and shadow priests who can multi-dot, sort of, even though with the busted version of shadow priest they have now, and other classes aren't even known for like good council cleave as an AF lock. Destro was terrible too, spoilers ahead. Like both the specs that are known for that, AF and Destro, they can't compete. You just can't do it because they're under-tuned, right? And App's known for its strengths in council-based settings, but sadly it's not going to have the raw damage. It doesn't. It doesn't have it. Once again, the 2-piece, 4-piece, they do help in certain areas with the raw rapture buff and the proc rate and all that. But there are a lot of fights this tier, which I get into in Destro. I can name it right now: Pantheon, Jailer, Anduin, Dreadlord, Zymox, Lihuvim, Halandrus. Maybe other fights we haven't even seen yet that could all be good Destro and Aff fights. But we've played Demonology on all of them, and it's not just because Demonology is good in single target. It is, but like, it's just because Destro and Aff are not good. Like, they're just not universally applicable. Aff is extremely niche. Destro just sucks everywhere, and Demo's good in single target, right? But I'm concerned because I have a feeling that we could be seeing an SOD again, where you play Demonology not because it's the best in every fight, which it could be on certain ones, obviously, right? There's some patchwork fights this tier. You know, I guess Lihuvim's not. There's a few. We already tested them, right? But there are fights that have huge potential, like Pantheon, like Lihuvim, Dreadlords, whatever, Anduin, for Destro and Aff cleave, but they're just so bad you can't play them because class tuning in 9.1 was promised. Didn't happen. 9.2 or 9.15 was promised. They buffed one random ability that one's played in 2 years. Didn't happen. I'm hoping in 9.2 they don't forget, because Destro has, like, here, Destro realistically has been almost unplayable since mid Shadowlands beta. It was that they nerfed it in beta drastically, and it's been undertuned, flopping around like a fish out of water since then. You had fights like Ultimore, like Enerva, like SLG in Nathria, and nobody played Destro because it was terrible. It got buffed a bit in 9.1 or 9.05, but it's still not good. Like, we thought Destro would be decent heading into SOD on like Remnant and Painsmith and Fate Scribe, and like it wasn't terrible during early prog, like world first stuff. But once people got either DSS for Aff or realized that Demo was just stronger anyways, it wasn't played anywhere. Comb through logs now, you don't see Destro anywhere because it's just undertuned. It's not good. And there were hopes of 9.15 PTR bringing buffs. We got a 30-second reduction in Nether Portal. But what happened to those buffs? Like, Destro is so it's so undertuned right now. And with the 2-piece and 4-piece being where they are, I'm legitimately nervous that a lot of the fights in Sepulchre are good Aff Destro fights, but the specs are just so poor right now in their damage output. We just won't be brought to them because they'll bring one lock to play Demo or to play whatever, to bring Healthstones and summons, and that's it. It's literally it, right? You know, and like I don't want to seem like I'm being like aggressive with this or anything, which is like I've been saying since 9.0, since beta. Oh, buffs are coming, but they haven't, and it's 9.2. I've been in Shadowlands for 2.5 years since beta, and Destro has not been played in any realistic setting since alpha. Destro needs help. The 2-piece, 4-piece need help. It's the final patch. Let it rip. Buff the bad specs. Let Lock be. Come on. You know, I think we can say that SOD was probably the worst Lock tier, which I want to say Lock was not like terrible in SOD. It's like middle ground of the middle ground classes, right? It's probably the worst tier Lock has had in a while, and I get it. Yeah, okay, Lock has been great for a while. I get it. I'm not saying it's like horrendous, but I'm just afraid we're gonna have another SOD going into Sepulchre because of how underperforming or undertuned Destro is, and how Aff doesn't have the actual reach I thought it would in council or cleave based settings, right? So once again, I don't want to seem like I'm coming off being aggressive here, but I hope that I had hoped that the 9.15 class tuning that was promised had not, or is not forgotten about in 9.2. However you want to word it, because there was some class tuning promised, but I'm hoping. Lock is the last class that has, the only class that has not been talked about. Destro, Aff, Demo tier bonuses, no class tuning, nothing. It's not true. We did get the Incubus, right? Which is cool. That's sick. But unfortunately, the Incubus will not carry us to great success in Sepulchre. So I'm hoping once the holidays are over, maybe next week for the holidays, they go on holiday break, right? If they're not already on it now, we see some class tuning. At least mentions of it, right? There's no new PTR builds for the new year, but a mention of, hey, this is what's changing for the 2-piece, 4-piece for these specs, and we're looking at class tuning. If you pull up Warcraft logs now, Destro's performance this tier is bottom of the barrel. That's after buffs. So yeah, TLDR, Aff 4-piece, Aff tier set, I like it. 4-piece usable tuning, whatever. Demo, I like it. Keep dogs at 2. Don't nerf the actual like 100% chance Could use some malicious imp damage buffs and some fixing. Destro needs a lot of help. The spec and both the actual, well, tier set itself. That about wraps it up. Thanks for watching, dudes. I think I pulled about half my hair out making this video. It's stressful, man, because I want Warlock to be good in Sepulchre. I feel that Demonology is in a fine spot, but Destro and Aff just need help. And this is the final patch of Shadowlands, and I really don't want to be in a state of mediocrity or less than mediocre for another raid. I will say Destro gets old to me as a spec after a while, but we haven't played it in any kind of relevant setting in a year and a half, 2 years. It's not hard to look at how the tuning it needs. A Chaos Bolt buff. I think a Chaos Bolt buff is realistically the best option that it has. Probably a substantial one. You can give it an aura buff, that's fine. There might be some scaling you need to take into account there with like other legendaries like Shard of Annihilation and things, but either way, it just needs help. Aff council-based stuff could use some too, but we'll see. You know, I'm hoping the reason Locke hasn't heard anything about tier set bonuses is because they're doing some big changes to all of them, and or they already have feedback, you know, gathered, or they're waiting for the holidays to drop them on us and the class tuning, right? You know, like a early Christmas present, right? Something like that. I'm saying all this now, and I know that, you know, Destro is gonna be the only spec to play in Sepulchre because of, you know, us obviously bashing it here, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I just want Locke to be good in 9.2, and yeah, I feel a bit late giving some of this feedback. I feel like I should have gotten that a few days before, but I really wanted to gather feedback from various sources. So once again, thank you, everybody I contacted, the Warlock forums, the DMs, Cheese, THC, Father, Daughter, Niu, Motoko, Malkath, Solzy, everybody. I appreciate all the feedback and the help. I'm glad to see that it aligned a good bit with what I thought about things, how they should change and stuff, but also a lot of really good ideas mixed in there as well that I hadn't really thought of. So it's cool to see the community coming together about these changes. Hopefully they're taken into account by Blizz, and we can go from there. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of these, I guess, changes, suggestion changes, whatever, what have you, in the comment section below. If you have any questions, put them down there as well. I will be sure to get back to you. Once again, if you want to talk about them live on stream or get any week auras or anything like that, feel free to swing by. There's a link down here somewhere. I stream 5 to 6 days a week typically. Over the holidays, we'll see. But yeah, once again, one massive shout out to my patrons. Thank you a million times, guys, for all support. Once again, heads up, the 9.2 Warlock PTR spreadsheet should be going up within a week or so. The tier 3 Felguard rank from a Patreon or higher does indeed get early access to that. If you're really interested in seeing the actual spreadsheet or the actual document for feedback and things down below, I'll put it down below, like the text version of it. You know what I'm saying? It'll be down below. The link to this is down below. Yeah, I've been rambling for 40 minutes now, and sorry. I tried to keep it short, but there's a lot of feedback to go off of. So, with that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.